So what's this got to do with Severance? Let me explain. I've got into a bit of a habit now of tracking all my metrics, and this could be around productivity, like getting numbers out of TickTick, which I use for task management, or Trello, or whichever app you use. I use that quite regularly to reflect on how much I get done. I also track all my life habits as well. I've got into a bit of a habit now, pun intended, to measure my screen time on my mobile phone. I don't yet, but I'm considering using rescue time to measure how I spend my time on a laptop or a computer. And I'm also tracking stuff like, health and lessons and music and all the other stuff that I tend to do. But am I getting distracted by all the data and not necessarily understanding why I'm doing it? If you watch Severance TV show, hugely popular, and I know I'm tapping into it, but I was thinking about this the other day. They are constantly hyper-focused, in the zone, crunching numbers, gamifying it to an extent, but they don't even know why. And no one knows why. This is the beauty of the TV show. We don't really know what they're actually delivering towards. But by tapping into those talents and giving the teams the metrics to justify that they're doing well, again, you're giving the people the kudos they deserve for doing good stuff, but they're not telling them exactly why. So I'm just trying to work out, why am I doing all this stuff? Where am I focusing my energy? And am I spending my energy on the right things? And it's something that I have to constantly check on myself. On my OKR plan on a page that I've talked about previously, I have to reassess and go, should I be doing this thing today, or should it wait till the next quarter when I'm shifting my focus? I was talking about doing a marketing plan last week for the PETALS website, but I'm trying to launch an app this quarter. I need to push that away and reassess how I can be more productive and more focused on getting the app live with the limited resources I have available. I'm working independently at the moment, and eventually the team will be able to support me. But until then, I'm going to do what I can, and then eventually they'll be able to join me and finish it off together. The point we're getting across here is we need to really tap into what we are strong at, understand our habits and our capacity, play into it, but actually take stock and think about, why am I doing this and how can I get the best value out of my time? This week I've been reading a little bit more about productivity, busyness, and how to organise yourself to get more done. So there's a couple of books I read this week or looked into. One is Off the Clock by Laura Vanderkam, and the other is The Bullet Journal Method by Ryder Carroll. These are two books that look at quite common concepts, but actually it got me thinking a bit more about some of the practices I've put in place over the last few years to try and get better focus and productivity out of myself. This is generally around my side projects, but it does cross over into my professional life as well and my personal life, just to make sure there's a good balance around the three. Hence why my old podcast, Make Life Work, was such a hot topic for me to think about. But what it got me thinking about was calendars and busyness. So are you a slave to your calendar? It depends on your role. I'm in a managerial role where I do have quite a lot of meetings where I need to go and talk to other managers, other stakeholders, or the teams that I work with. So naturally my calendar gets quite full very quickly. Comparing this to a typical individual contributor calendar, which is a lot lighter, maybe a couple of checkpoints with some teammates or peers, maybe a few team conversations. So it got me thinking about how I can find a better balance so I can do productive stuff in my working day. A couple of things that have worked quite well for me though. So back in lockdown, when I was trying to find time to do work, I was managing quite a few people across a number of teams, and that's why the productivity metric became quite important for me from the PETALS framework. Not only was I having busy times and busy weeks, how productive was I feeling about that week as well? So this is why the P in productivity and PETALS is so important. It is an arbitrary number that you kind of rate yourself out of, but how productive do you feel like you have been in the time frame that you're looking back over? When I was trying to get into more side projects, I even tried a few other concepts like time journaling, and this crosses over a little bit with bullet journaling, but I wanted to understand where I was spending my time on a quite frequent basis and start to look at some trends over time. So I set up a Google Sheet with half-hour units throughout the week, and I could sort of measure what I was doing and just flag it, whether it was a meeting, whether it was some productive time, whether it was downtime. And it was quite nice, especially during lockdown when I was not getting out much, how I was trying to make social time, but also carve out productive time for side projects and work at the same time. I also like to be really careful and make sure I make time for fitness and health and downtime with the family and social time. So the time journal concept was quite nice to do that. I time boxed it to a few months so I can see if there were any trends over that time as well, and look for the hot spots of going, well, actually that point is a little bit pointless. I could be watching a lot of TV that I was getting nothing from. That could become side project time. I did find that there might be a lot of work meetings, but not actually productive time. So then I can shift things around to make it work. So I could say Monday, Wednesday and Friday were meeting days. Tuesdays and Thursdays were meeting free days. One thing that I do now is I make sure that I block out every Friday afternoon as my focus time. Ideally, meetings work around this, and often the case they can. Occasionally, exceptions can slip through, which is completely understandable, but I'll make sure I balance it out. So at least I know that for half a day a week, I have focused time to get things done. The other added benefit of doing this kind of focus time is that you can reserve it for any learning you might want to do. We are very busy people, we are very productive, and there's a nice balance to have. When are you actually learning new things? And if you have got professional development plans in place where you need to do a bit more training or a little bit of focus YouTube learning or LinkedIn learning or Pluralsight or anything like that, when do you do that? So by protecting some windows around your week where there are spots of no distractions, actually when are you most effective at learning, because it might be better in the morning or afternoon depending on your personality type and your neurodiversity. Have a think about where it fits. Pop it in your calendar and try to keep other people away from there. If you need to make the exceptions, move things around, because it is your time that you're protecting, no one else's. Because I'm out and about, no one to talk to, I thought I'd have a chat with ChatGPT to see what they would think would be my why. I asked, can you help me find my why? And they came back with a couple of good questions around purpose, passions and stuff like that. So because I do this verbally as well, I love that feature in ChatGPT. If you could just have a conversation with it, it's really quite handy, especially when you're not necessarily wanting to type things down. But anyway, the conversation was quite interesting. I talked about some of my past passions, my success stories that I'm pretty proud of. A lot of it was around the community, I'm going to be honest. It goes back to the multi-pack in the noughties, our Birmingham-based creative community on the side during lockdown, the online community for side project fans, and then how I do this at work as well. So the why we came up with was connecting people to grow together, which I think aligns really well with Petals as to why I do it. I like to connect people so they can grow together. And the Petals framework is one way of doing that in a workplace. So since I've done that exercise, I've been refining it a little bit, just to kind of change the language a little bit. And I've come down to creating spaces where people feel safe, seen and supported to thrive and grow. It's probably a little bit wordy at the moment. I need to make it a bit more succinct. Gen AI maybe. But I feel like I've found why I do all these things. Even providing this content, I like to share, bring people together and hopefully grow in the process. But there's my action to you. My takeaway is, do you know why you do what you do? And if not, why not? Try using tools like ChatGPT or Claude, Copilot, whichever is your preference, and ask those questions and find out why you do what you do and where you get your passions from. So, as I alluded to in the teaser at the start, Petals has been published for the first time. My old friend Nick Brown referenced Petals in his book Real World Agility. He's got 2 or 3 pages about Petals, how it all works. So as you can see, he uses the flower analogies and it gives you some real world examples how it worked with some of the teams he's worked with as well. It's a nice little case study to demonstrate what can be done with Petals, but it also gives me a little bit of affirmation that this actually works. So to get this printed and not just a blog post or a video, it gives me a bit more confidence that we're doing the right thing. I've recently started working with a lot more teams, and I don't necessarily have the context of who these teams are. I've got some insights from elsewhere, but I've not got any first-hand evidence. So I'm going to go with the benefit of the doubt with a fresh canvas and sort of get to know the teams my own way. So for me, I need to build trust with these teams. I don't want to go in there with any preconceived opinions. I want to make sure that I'm providing good leadership to everyone involved, even those people I'm not directly managing, but those people that are supporting members of the team, and giving that environment the right space. These teams are already using PETALS as part of their typical retrospectives, but I don't think they're using it to its full potential yet. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is just kind of establish relationships with the individuals in the team, maybe not all of them, but some key members, understand, what their background's like, what their personality types are like, and really get to grips with who they are before we start making any suggestions and improvements. So recently I was listening to a blink about the book Trust Works by Ken Blanchard, Cynthia Olmsted, and Martha Lawrence. They talk about the ABC model of trust. I don't want to give too much away, you need to go and do your own reading. But what I did get from this is the levels and different lenses you need to use when you're kind of establishing trust with individuals and teams. I'm going through it, I'm just trying to work out how I'm going to apply it, if I am. And there's plenty more kind of research behind trust models that work. But again, it was just me trying to dive into some content that was relevant to how I'm actually growing myself at the moment, my circumstances, and seeing what's relevant. And it gives me a nice way to get that L up in my PETALS scores as well, about learning new things. And also making sure that it's applied and I got the opportunity to try it in the mode. One thing that I have been exploring recently within my day job is the idea of team topologies and how our teams are organised effectively from different scaled organisations. I've been reading some material to kind of understand this a bit more and looking at what I've done in the past as well. And as organisations scale, what I've seen is that there's different ways of doing this. There's some great material out there to kind of correlate this to other industries as well. I'm very limited to tech from my experience, but my background has also worked in other environments that aren't necessarily tech first. Think about a HR team, think about a personnel team or finance team, or even fulfillment or manufacturing. All these industries have different ways of organising their teams to deliver and do good quality products, but they don't necessarily work like tech do. Tech have been very good at adjusting and finding better ways and experimenting with different ways as well. So it works both ways and how these teams organise. One thing I'm also conscious of is capability. Do we have the right capabilities in our teams to do what we're trying to achieve? And it's something I've been exploring recently within my day job as well, where we have the right skills and capabilities and attitudes and behaviours, plus the domain expertise, how we fill the gaps potentially as well. We're going into an era of AI now. Whether you like it or not, AI is here to support us as part of our environments. But are we using it to the best of our advantage? Let's bring this back to PETALS. So we know we've got a very limited capacity in our delivery, in our time and our skills potentially. So what we're trying to do to complement that is using AI and other tooling to help us with that as well. I've been making the most of tools like cursor.com to provide assistive intelligence. That's the A in AI for me, assistive intelligence, with context-aware code editor, so it can resolve some problems for me really efficiently. I'm normally quite good at this as well and doing a better job than I possibly could. I'm also using ChatGPT quite a lot now to support me with all my daily habits and my admin. I'm just chucking in a quick prompt and getting the context down and maybe revisiting it later when I can. But it's giving me the tools to kind of have like an assistant to help me get things done. Not always work related or PETALS, but at least I've got that consistent place to go to on my phone, on my laptop, wherever I'm working is ready to listen and help me. How should leaders be using data from PETALS? I was in a session recently where we were looking at teams across a department and we were using team health metrics from PETALS to understand how the teams were doing, how they were feeling about all these factors. But one of the interesting questions that came up was, well, Serenity has taken a dip. What's happened there? And only by being in the conversation, I knew that it was generally from personal circumstances. So this raised a question. One, Should we be including our work-life situations in the PETALS scores? You probably need to discuss this with your team to see what they want to do. If you do want to use personal factors, absolutely understandable. We work in an environment now where work-life balance is really important. Mental health is really important. We talk about all these things and leadership generally do support it. But ultimately, when it comes to the fact that they're bringing these factors to the team conversations and the heat map suggests things aren't quite right, how do we use the heat maps just to get the conversation starting again? I was lucky to be in that conversation to say, well, actually, the serenity took a dip because of other problems with team members, not necessarily within the team. And the leaders were saying, well, how can we help that? Which is a great way to start the conversation. But also, you need to make sure someone is there to represent the data and talking about it, which is why PETALS is a conversation starter and not necessarily a hard number to use to measure. But yeah, also think about what other conversations do you want to have with your leaders? Why do leaders want to know about the data? I've always encouraged leaders to observe the metrics and be in the conversations, but don't take it on face value. Make sure you are in the conversations or having the conversations if you can't be, to find out why the scores are that way. This is what we do at the team level. It should do it at all levels as well. And I was just reading a book about startups and the reality of startups. How the illusion of tech bros is not necessarily all that. It's actually the exception. Most successful startup founders are in their late 30s, early 40s. So that's reassuring. They say it's because it's based on more experience and confidence and risk awareness. You're looking for opportunities that you've actually lived. And this is where I feel like PETALS has come from. I've worked in the tech game for 20 plus years now. And now I'm a leader and trying to look after teams and manage projects and all that sort of thing. And now we're in a more hybrid/remote world. That's why I've seen the opportunity with PETALS. Yes, the concept is a freebie. It's not necessarily tied to a product, but the product is an outcome where we can refine it and use our vision and our technical skills and our ideas to make it a real world thing. I want to save the rest of the speech for our launch party, which I'll be doing in a few weeks' time. I did plan something for tomorrow, but I decided against it. I put teasers out. I got some feelers. A couple of people signed up, which was lovely, but I was like, it's not quite the big bang I want to go for. So I'll build the hype a bit more, I think, and make sure that we make a bigger presence of it all, and do some launch plans on a lot of the apps and socials as well, so you've done it properly, not just hacking away at a quick win. I'm all for quick wins when you can, but like the app, I'm like, nah, I want to do it properly. Anyway, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be exciting and hopefully not too problematic. I'm ready for the problems though. I've worked in tech for long enough, I know.